Northwest Liberty News, picking the lock on the shackles of tyranny.
Machines are going to fail, and the system's going to fail.
The past is past, the future's now.
Don't look at me. I think these people are completely nuts.
Sometimes trouble just follows a man.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
Can't you stop your lips from flapping for 2 little minutes?
It's because I'm white.
I'm a man. I'm sensitive. I need to feel loved. I need to be desired.
I'm rapidly becoming a big underground success in this town.
It's a question of methods. Everybody wants results, but nobody wants to do what they have to do to get them done.
And now, coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News, it's Montana Gazette Radio with your host, James White. Okay, I'm your host, James White. This is Montana Gazette Radio. Thanks so much for joining us here today on this spooky Friday the 13th. I don't buy into all that, but we do appreciate you being here today on the broadcast. We are coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana. And we have, this is Freedom Friday. We have a returning guest with us. Ron Gibson is going to be here with us in just a moment. Sorry for the late start on the show here, but sometimes there's technical difficulties that we have to work ourselves through. Before we get on to the show here, though, I'd like to talk about the Montana Daily, the Montana Gazette Radio, the website there, and what we got going on Montana Gazette Radio. You can visit that website, and you can see all of the different social media channels that we're connecting with. And here's today's program. If you actually went there now and clicked this, you'd be able to watch this live. So all the broadcasts are going to be live from this point forward on Montana Gazette Radio. Go to the Rumble channel if you don't mind and sign up. The Rumble channel is growing. It's brand new, and we're just trying to get the word out, folks, and we need your help to do it. So go to all these channels if you can on the Montana Gazette Radio page and sign up or follow all of these channels and help us spread the word out to the folks. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to welcome our guest, Ron Gibson. Let me give Ron an introduction here. He's been on the show so many times, and he probably doesn't need an introduction, but other people, watch these videos, who knows how long down the line. So for those purposes, we'd like to give Ron a proper introduction every time he comes on. Ron Gibson is a former U.S. Marine and Vietnam veteran who currently works as a professional consultant, counselor at law, with over 48 years of experience on the subject of land patents, mining law, right-of-way, contracts, water rights, and constitutional law. He was raised on a ranch in southern Oregon, and his education is in engineering and constitutional law. Having a cattle ranching and mineral background has helped him tackle many of the issues facing rural America today. Ron has several gold and industrial mineral projects in the western U.S. He currently serves as the vice president of the Southwestern Oregon Mining Association and is the chairman of the Jefferson Mining District located in southern Oregon. As a licensed pilot, Ron has designed a helicopter and is the inventor of 2 environmental cleanup products. Additionally, he is also involved in turbine engines, marine boat power plants, and turbine propulsion projects for helicopters and airplanes. His love of history and lifelong experience in cattle and horses has also served him well in his land, hay, alfalfa, and high-quality beef operations. In his spare time, Ron enjoys collectible auto restoration, raising quarter horses and paint horses, flying and teaching classes in constitutional law, mining law, and land patents. And we're going to have to bring him over here and pop him into the broadcast here, and we'll have him here just in a moment. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ron Gibson. Ron, let me take you off mute here. Thanks so much, Ron, for joining us. Just go ahead and click that button there that says unmute. You got it, brother. Ron, thanks so much for joining us here today on the broadcast. Always great to see you. Ron, are you there? Okay, I tell you what we're going to do. When we get the video back here, you there? Oh, there we go. Okay, very good. Hey, Ron, good to see you, man. Thanks for being here today. We appreciate it.
You bet, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're quite welcome. Well, Ron, some of the things I want to talk about here today, I know you have a wide, a vast amount of knowledge about things. But some of the stuff I want to talk about today, if we could, was I want to talk about land patents, land patent titles. I had David Straight on the phone yesterday, who I know you know very well. We had David Straight on the phone yesterday. And we were talking about mortgages. We're talking about mortgages and how a mortgage is not created until you go in there and sign the paperwork, and you really are, the mortgage is, as he explained, as the mortgage is really paid for, and you're just paying really the bank. You're paying the bank for the purpose of I guess managing your property. Perhaps I don't even know how all that is. But anyway, Ron, I'd like to talk about that and many other things. Ron, what's on your mind first of all? Do you want to get anything you want to start off with? Anything that's of special concern for you? I know you have a keen eye for this stuff, and you keep your eye on what's going on with the news. And what do you think, Ron? Where are we at right now, and what do you think's going on? Just give us a 30,000-foot view before we get going.
Well, one of the things that is continually on my mind and that weighs heavy, I guess, on my heart, and that is that a good majority, or whatever that number is, and I can't tell you that it's this number or that number, but nevertheless, a significant amount of people who seem to be willing to let our our country slide into socialism, and tyranny. And I don't think that group of people, whomever they are, wherever they are, understand what's at stake. And I'm doing everything, and numerous other people and groups or whatever are trying to wake the people up. And we did a little illustration, or I did, to the other day. They were talking about this problem or that in my small office room there, but there's a whiteboard there. And I asked him, I said, I want you to write this down. And I said, at the very top of that, I said, write God, and make a little vertical line down.
Okay, Ron, let's pause. Ron, let's pause for a moment here, okay? Let's pause for a moment. We're having some technical issues with you. Go ahead and pause for a second. Hold that story. Hold on to that story, Ron.
The people.
Ron,
another little vertical which.
Hold on to that story. Let's stop your video. We're going to stop your video, and then we're going to put this the screensaver that I have already set aside for you here. Or this I already have an image that I took a screen capture for you here. Can you hear me, Ron?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so it's much better now. So what's going on here is we're having some issues with the video is causing problems for us. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and throw up your picture right here, and then we're going to go ahead and continue. Now if you can, start over again. Sorry about that, brother, but you were just breaking up really badly, and you got so much important information to say here that I don't want any of it to get lost. So let's go ahead and do a reset. I think your audio is going to be a lot better now. I'll turn it back over to you, Ron. Go ahead.
Well, I was just trying to relate when you asked me the question, excuse me, about what it is that was on my mind. And one of the things that is very troubling to me, that there seems to be a very large group of people that have been deceived, because that's what it is. The Bible says Satan will blind their eyes, and they will want to have their ears tickled. In other words, just hear what they want to hear. And I walked into a meeting the other day there at my law office in another room, and the gentlemen present were talking about some of the problem areas that this nation is facing. And it was obvious to me, to some of them, did not understand the point of what the sequence of authority and jurisdiction is. So there's a whiteboard behind one of the guys' desks, there. And I asked him, I said, I want you to write this on the whiteboard. And I said, right across the top, I want you to write the word God. And I said, then do a vertical line down just a few inches. And then underneath that, I said, write we the people. And I said, another vertical line. And I said, then you put government. And underneath that, I said, you put the courts. And under that, you put others. And I said, my Bible tells me that God gave dominion over the entire earth to the man, not to government. And I said, we the people have created government by God's authority and God's direction. And as a result of that, then the courts were to set up, the government was to set up the courts, and then the courts were to administer the directives that God has commanded us that he wants us to follow. It's called common law of the land, if you please, however you want to define it. And when I got through explaining to them how this sovereignty works, that you and I and all people are sovereign because we're created by Almighty God. And in that sovereignty, we're sovereigns without subject. In other words, we're to take care of ourselves, to make sure that we do what's right. But we have people now that are very complacent to seem to want or push our country into a tyrannical government. And we're right on the very urge of that as we speak. And Jim, you see it every day, I and many others. And it takes the people to stand up and to do something about it. And I want to give an illustration here real quick, and then we can move on. I want to go back to January 6th, when this whole issue there at the Capitol began to unfold. Our Constitution, under Article 1, allows us to petition our grievances to our government. And that government facility and the government itself is under our jurisdiction. We are not under their jurisdiction. There's a very famous case called City of Dallas versus Mitchell case. And on page 3 of that ruling, and maybe I shared this a week ago, and I don't mean to be repetitive, but it is so appropriate, I guess, to bring it up again. And that is the issue. The court has said our rights don't come from government. Hello, people. Did you catch that? Our rights don't come from government. They come from our Creator. And we're not subject to government rules and regulations unless we volunteer to be subject to those rules and regulations. And so we seem to have a mass of people rushing to jump off of the 150-foot, 200-foot cliff, or however you want to define it, and let this country go to hell in a basket. And that's very disturbing to me. My soul grieves over that. That's like spitting in the face of every serviceman that has served and everyone who has given their lives to protect the freedoms that we now have and enjoy. But we're letting it slip away. And one of the primary elements to maintaining our freedom is our land and our right of land ownership. And that comes from the Bible. There are 11 different scriptures in the Bible, of which we will, by God's own blessing and by his command, that we have a right to own land. And our government now is intent and motive is to take that land away. And I keep hollering from the rooftops, they're coming after your land. So
we'll get into the land patent stuff here in a moment. And I've got your book over here, and I'll break that out and show people the book here. Before we get to that point, Ron, break down, if you can, for us, I think 48 years now, 48, close to 50 years, really, with your, being involved with constitutional law and studying and seminars all across the country and taught classes. Can you lay it out for us in terms of the law, not just where someone says, well, I'm not going to allow that because that's against my beliefs. Can you lay it out lawfully why the EPA, the FDA or the CDC more accurately, why does the CDC not have the ability to mandate that you and I get a shot? Why does the Biden does not have the authority or ability to mandate that you and I get a shot? We know that, we just know that they can't really. It's not a dictatorship, but lawfully speaking, in terms of the law, why are they not allowed to do that, Ron? I say not allowed to. I mean, they're allowed to try to do whatever they want to, but lawfully, why is that such an affront to our liberties?
Well, basically, the basis to answer that question is very simple. They are not a law-making body. The legislature, Congress, the Senate, etc., are the ones that are authorized to make law. The problem with the legislatures is they don't make law either. What they make is statutes and codes. Statutes and codes are not law. And there's nothing in the Constitution bears this out. You cannot take a legislative enactment that supersedes a constitutional protected right. And we see it coming all the time. And the people have been indoctrinated to the fact that, well, the government says jump, or the divisions of government, being the CDC and many others, that act like they are a law-making body. They cannot make determinations of law. There's no provision in law for that, period.
Boy, I tell you, Ron, this goes deep, right? And of course, we go back to and we've talked about this here before, and I really need to do another whole show on it. But the Clearfield Doctrine that states that any corporation, any entity, any city, county, state that adopts the status of a corporation have no more rights than any other corporation. And I've talked about this before, and I just want to bring that up again, Ron, for you to reiterate that. We're fairly confident at this point. I think it's pretty well known that my county's incorporated, the city's incorporated, the state's incorporated, and also the United States is incorporated. So these are all corporations. I don't think there's really any. I don't think that's a conspiracy to make that statement, Ron. And you can certainly follow up on this. Is it not true, Ron? The Clearfield Doctrine, I want to say it's in 1964, still standing law, as far as I know, for Supreme Court law, says any organization that takes on that adopts the role of a corporation or becomes a corporation has no more rights than another corporation. And when I make this statement, Ron, I know it's going to sound silly, but I want you to verify if it's true or not. They don't really have any more right to pull you over and give you a ticket or fine you than the manager of McDonald's does, because they're both corporations. Is that hyperbole, Ron, or am I accurate on that?
No, you're right on the money, because corporations don't make law anyway. The corporation of the state corporation, as you mentioned, they enact statutes and codes. Statutes and codes are not law. And one of the things that rubs me right to the bone real quick, when I have some politician or some law enforcement deal, the public prosecutor or whatever it might be, we're going to enforce the rule of law. That is such an asinine statement, I can't even believe it. What they're saying in that statement alone is the fact that we're going to use this law, or this code, rule, that being one of the statutes and codes or policy or principle, whatever, and they're going to treat it as though it's law and claim and expect you and I to be subject to that. It's either a rule or it's law. What's wrong with this calling it the law or call it a rule? But they do this little word creation here and call it rule of law. And boy, it sounds impressive, and it sounds like it has all kinds of authority, and it doesn't have either.
Well, and that goes back to the de facto and the de jure, right? Where de facto is if it's in common practice and is generally agreed upon by the population, then it moves forward as de facto. But that doesn't necessarily make it lawful just because it's de facto, just because everybody, if everybody all got together in the community and agreed that, that I need to be stoned to death, it doesn't make it lawful. for them to stone me to death because I have individual rights as well. So, I mean, the whole thing really is built upon a fraud, Ron, and it comes down to the whole corporate status, and it comes down to administrative law. And like you stated, so you're telling me, and just for the sake of the folks that are tuning in here, Montana has what's called the MCA, or Montana Code Annotated, that is supposed to be tied into the Montana Constitution. It's supposed to work in conjunction with that, to be the basis of, for the term, for lack of better terms, the law in Montana. Are you stating that this Montana Code Annotated, this code that they put forward, is not, on its face, just talking constitutionally speaking, is not valid? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not valid, simply because they are a corporation trying to enact what they're claiming is law. It can affect the corporation or anyone under contract to the corporation. But if you're not under contract or hired or employed by and then they get into all of this, what they call adhesion contracts and stuff. What a joke. Your capital letters, your straw man name, all of that stuff that they claim it binds you. The problem with that is that it's fraud because they do not make full disclosure. And under the fraud statutes, if you do not make full disclosure, that negates or cancels, if you want to use the word, any and all contracts. A lot of this stuff they're claiming we're bound to, they never told us what we're getting versus what we're giving up. That's the tragedy of that.
So you're saying the Montana Department of Revenue that collects the taxes for Montana, they're technically collecting taxes for the corporation, is what they're doing.
That is correct. That is correct.
So when did I ever agree to pay? When did I ever agree to support the corporation? Did I agree?
You just illustrated my point. We didn't agree to do that, going back to the city of Dallas versus Mitchell case. We're not bound by that unless we volunteer to do it. And then they put threats and intimidation like we have to do it, when in fact the majority, if you go to every landowner across the land, you probably will find less than a handful that say, boy, yeah, I want to pay property tax. I had a gal call me from New Jersey here about a month ago. 10 years ago, her property tax was $8,000 and some change. This year's tax bill was $88,700 plus and some change. I keep telling people.
Is that a mistake? Was that a mistake?
No, it's not a mistake.
They're only so. I think most of the time you're only allowed to, by the bylaws of the city, if they even follow those, you're only allowed to raise taxes a certain amount of percentage in the course of a year. It's like capped, right?
That's only if the state hasn't enacted a limit on per year raising of taxes. My point is this, Jim, and to your audience, and that is the issue. As I said earlier in this broadcast, they're coming after your land, and they're coming after it in numerous ways, by excessive taxation. They're coming after it by legislative acts. They're coming after it environmentally. They're coming after it through decisions of the court. We better wake up, or we're not going to have anything of a constitutional republic country. We're losing it if we don't stand up and protect it.
Well, Ron, it's been said that everything goes back to private property, right? Private property rights. I mean, your body is your private property. Your body is your private property. Whether you have who's got permission to inject anything into your private property in your body without your permission. Your speech is your private property. Your intellectual process it took for me to write an article or do a video. Right, that's my private property, and they're not only coming after that; they're coming after your actual property that you're living on, as you're stating. But the good news is not here's it's a two-faceted issue here, Ron. What you're saying about the land patent and everything is absolutely true, no doubt about it. I mean, we've talked about it for a long time. You've helped a lot of people here in the Flathead Valley, as a matter of fact, at the land patent. But the problem is that these criminal bar courts, do they recognize that? That's the thing. Do they recognize the land patent? I've heard in some cases they do, and in some cases they don't, which is preposterous, because if I remember from the research, the only person that can really refute a land patent is the Supreme Court. If I remember correctly, it's got to go all the way to the Supreme Court. No municipality can make a decision on your land patent independently without going to the Supreme Court. Can you flesh that out a little bit, Ron?
Well, and that's true, but even some of the Supreme Court cases per se has made some gross errors in their decision. It depends upon what excuse me, what their philosophy is about the ownership of land. If you go back to the hearings that, there's a land patent book that I wrote, and you look at the hearings that Congress and Senate had conducted early on when the General Land Office was to be formed, was on the basis that they wanted a system to where your land could not be taken from even the poor man. And that's the reason that the General Land Office was created, and they were given broad authority, and whatever they decided was in stone. And there's a maxim in law that's universal. One can only claim jurisdiction over that which one creates. That's why we have a straw man name, all capital letter. It's why your driver's license and insurance and everything else is in capital letters, etc. That's why they redefined land after the Administrative Procedures Act was enacted in 1946. It changed the definition, which is unlawful to do, by the way, to change legal terms. And they now redefined it as real estate. Real estate and land may occupy the same boundary, but it is not under the same jurisdiction. And that's what people don't seem to understand or want to or whatever. A lot of people are searching. I get that calls for my book daily. But the point being is that our land is to be protected by the intent and act of Congress. That's why we have a allodial title. And you got people out there saying there is no such thing as a allodial title. If you look in my book that you just held up on page 5, you will find that it says in there that all patents issued are allodial. All, A-L-L, not some, not once in a while, all of them. So they're either allodial titles or they're not. It's kind of like the analogy I use. The woman's either pregnant or she's not. I've never known of a half-pregnant woman. So
that's a good question. That's a good analogy, Ron. All right, tell you what we're doing. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back on the other side with Ron Gibson, we're going to talk about the land patent titles. And I'd also like to explore this whole concept further, Ron, of when you go get a mortgage at a bank and what a fraud that is. I've heard you say before that all foreclosures are fraudulent. There's no legal foreclosure on your property. I think I've heard you say that before. It was either you or Gene. Was it you, Ron? You said that, haven't you? Is that your sentiment? I want to misquote you. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. Let's talk about that. And a point was brought up, of course, with David about the money being created once you sign the mortgage. So we're going to flesh that out and other things here with Ron Gibson, constitutional lawyer. To be able to reach out to Ron, you can send him an email, and you see it right on the screen there. For those of you that are just going to be listening to this on audio, you can email Ron at dritecrg@hotmail.com. Again, that's dritecrg@hotmail.com. Or you can dial him on the phone directly by calling 541-621-5548. Again, 541-621-5548 to get in touch with Ron Gibson. You can order his books. You can consult with him. He's can work in, Ron, you can handle cases like in all 50 states, right? I mean, when I say handle cases, you don't necessarily go before the court and practice law in a sense, but you can certainly assist people that have issues with these type of things. Certainly the land patent, you can do that in pretty much all 50 states. Is that correct? Is that accurate, Ron?
That's correct.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break here. We're going to go ahead and put Ron's microphone on mute here, and we'll be back with him in just a moment. Folks, if you want to support this broadcast, you can go to MontanaGazetteRadio.com. That's MontanaGazetteRadio.com. Let me open this up here. For some reason, I can't. There we go. MontanaDailyGazette.com. Just pass the articles around, pass the videos around. As I said, we just got the new Rumble channel kind of up and going. If you just type in Montana Gazette Radio there on Rumble, or go to MontanaGazetteRadio.com and click on the links there, you can get right to all the social media channels. So we appreciate Ron Gibson, and we'll be back after these brief messages here on Montana Gazette Radio. I'm your host, James White. If you like classic cars, exceptional service, and a money-back guarantee, then the Corner Shop in beautiful downtown Kalispell is the place for you. Whether it's an oil change, engine diagnostic, suspension work, or brakes all around, the Corner Shop has you covered. With expert technicians and a free consultation on all services, you can't go wrong with the Corner Shop. Did I mention the classic cars? While you're waiting for your expert service to be performed, take a stroll through the showroom to see Kalispell's smoothest collection of classic cars. The Corner Shop is conveniently located at 1212 South Main, just south of the courthouse. The Corner Shop is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., so drop by for an appointment or call 755-7777. That's 755-7777. The Corner Shop, Kalispell's full-service auto repair facility. Hi, this video is brought to you by PatriotPrepared.com, where right now you can save $250 on each large package purchase, plus get free shipping to the continental United States. In these troubled times, it's not a bad idea to have some extra food storage available, and you can save big at Patriot Prepared right now. Go to PatriotPrepared.com, that's PatriotPrepared.com, and use the code TRUMP250 at checkout to receive your savings today. Okay, folks, thanks for hanging on after the break. And I've said this before, just these are the final days of these commercials and this whole look of the broadcast. Even those banners there, the Montana Gazette Radio banners you see below, will be gone. It'll all be up. It'll all be changed. It'll all be different. We're going to have a much more professional broadcast here going on. Going to be getting a green screen here. It's going to be pretty sweet from what I hear. And we're just waiting for the computer to arrive, and then once we break into the AM and FM networks across central Montana and out in eastern Montana, then all those changes will take place. And we do appreciate your support through this time here. Again, some of these shows are not consistently 2 hours. They will be when everything gets going. It'll probably be from 5 to 7 p.m. in the evening is what it looks like it's probably shaken out to be. But we'll be making all those announcements and much more when we come to some conclusions on some things. We're still in negotiation right now with a couple different networks across the state. So hopefully we can have a broad reach here in Montana to help get the truth out and the word out and combat the fake news that's all around us, as we know. But one person that doesn't give out fake news is Ron Gibson, and he's been on my show for years, 6 or 7 years, I think I've known Ron and been recording him. He came here to Kalispell a while ago, and I've had him on the show, gee whiz, I don't even know how many times, probably close to 30 times now, I would bet, maybe more. We're always delighted to have Ron on the broadcast, and just a brilliant mind, has a brilliant mind for the law, and some of the best shows I've ever done. Before actually the YouTube channel got kicked off, Ron Gibson was one of the, I think no driver's license required, had 100 and something thousand views on it. That was, I think, one of the top videos, and he had a couple other ones that were in the high 10,000s. Always great stuff, and Ron Gibson comes on. Ron, we do appreciate you hanging on after the break, my friend. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day to be here on the broadcast with us.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. Ron, we're gonna talk, if we can, here about the whole process. That's sometimes a person's biggest investment that they ever make in their lifetime is their home. It usually costs several $100,000 if you get one that's in a halfway decent neighborhood and a halfway decent part of town. A halfway decent house. It's going to cost you several $100,000, and it's going to take a long time. That's a lot of money to pay back for most people that are making 40, 50 grand a year or so. Let's walk through that process if we can, Ron. As I said, I had David Straight on the program yesterday. We were having technical issues with David. He was cutting in and out a lot, and we didn't really get the full grasp of everything he was trying to say. I know that you and David are colleagues. I know that you guys have a very similar level of knowledge when it comes to these things. So if you can pick up sort of where David left off yesterday, Ron, or help fill in some of the gaps that we didn't get a chance to hear because of his breaking up on the audio. When you go in to sign your mortgage, let's say you find a nice house in a nice neighborhood, Ron, and it's $300,000. You make the offer, everything's accepted. You walk in there to sign the mortgage and claim that home that you've negotiated for. Walk us through the remainder of that process if you can, Ron. David says your house is paid for once you sign that document. The money's taken out of your trust, and the bank is just basically, you're paying the bank an exorbitant amount of interest to be a management company for something that they don't even really technically need to manage, but they've put themselves in a position to do so they can just bilk money from you and your family for 30 years. That's a lot, Ron, but do you care to pick up on that and explain that in layman's terms, what goes on when you go in to sign that mortgage?
Yeah, would be glad to. Very few people understand what happens when you are seeking a mortgage to purchase a home. And that is the fact, first of all, I want to mention, I want you to keep in mind the word fraud as I go through this, because it's all a fraud, okay? And people, I'll get into this, but a lot of people say, well, the bank loaned me this money, and so I got to pay it back. And when I try to explain to them the process that's used and why it's not a loan, some of them go, wow, and others go, well, I still believe that they loaned me the money. So you have people on both sides of the issue. But let me take you through it. Let's say that, like Jim indicated, that you're looking at purchasing a home, and you approach a particular lending company, bank, mortgage company, savings and loan, whatever it may be. And they agree of which to so-called fund the purchase of that land. Here's what happens. They draw up this document that they're calling a contract that is not a contract. If you look at the law of contract, a contract has to have certain elements to be lawfully qualified as a contract. And a contract requires that there must be an offer, there must be an acceptance, and there must be consideration. There must be the parties identified of who are a part of the so-called contract. The details relating to what is the contract is to accomplish has to be made known. And the other issue is that there has to be, if it's applicable, a sunset clause. In other words, for how long is it? And most mortgages are for 20, 30, or 40 years, whatever that number may be. But let's get back to the basics. So when you are confronted with the representative from the bank on a thing, and they have you sign that document, that is not a contract, number one. The other thing that they have you sign is called a promissory note. That promissory note is always exact same number of which the value of the home that you are purchasing. Now, what the courts have allowed here, and the courts are part of the fraud. Okay, let's keep that real clear.
Shocker.
Pardon?
I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear that, Ron.
Well, it's true, because they're letting the mortgage company, the bank, any lending institution to do and aid these different types of frauds. So let me go on. And when they have you sign this so-called contract that is no contract by the law of contract, and they have you sign a promissory note, they're allowed, with no lawful authority to do this, to treat that promissory note as a check to where they can go and cash it, or they can take that promissory note and monetize it and then securitize it. And these are all bundled up, many of them, and they're sent to Dun and Bradstreet for ratings. Once Dun and Bradstreet rates all of these so-called contracts and promissory note, then in essence it goes to Wall Street, of which those so-called contracts and everything are put on different elements on Wall Street, and then they're sold through stocks and bonds and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So in essence, if that process is used, that being the monetization, the securitization, rated by Dun and Bradstreet, and then it gets to Wall Street, the potential owner, now listen to this carefully, the potential owners and then the actual owners, if you want to follow their logic, is that the owners of your note, your promissory note, could be millions of people across and around the world. And under law, only the owners can institute a foreclosure. But the banks claim that they have a right to do that they are now a servicing entity on behalf of the quote owners. Well, there's another fraud. They represented that they're the lender to you to start. And when you start questioning, it's all of a sudden now, no, we're a servicing agent. So now we're going to foreclose upon your defaulting. Here's the problem with that whole thing is the very fact if they use the promissory note as a check, they will hold that promissory note for 4 days, because the first 3 days is that you have a right of revocation of signature. In other words, you can pull your signature back, nullify your signature if you say, man, I really shouldn't have done this. On the 4th day, because you have passed that revocation protective time frame, if they cash that, then David is absolutely correct. They go to a trust account that you don't even know that you have, and they draw, let's say, a $500,000 property. I'm just going to use that for the sake of my illustration here. And at that point in time, that money is taken and given to the title company, who then pays off the seller. Okay? Now, once that seller receives that $500,000, where in all of this process has the bank loaned the so-called borrower any money? It does not exist.
They're an intermediary at best. They're just a facilitator, right? So are they the only ones that have the right to go to this trust account and draw the money out as the bankers? Why couldn't you just do that, Ron? Why couldn't you just go and get that money out of your trust and pay off that loan? Why do you have to use the bank and then pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest for their services?
Well, simply because they don't want you and I having access to that, because that whole account is manipulated in credit cards. It's manipulated in any kind of financial contract. You buy a car, they do the same thing. The credit card is the same thing. They're all in this together, and it's fraud from start to finish. Basically, on the 4th day of any type of mortgage, so-called, and I'll call it a contract for this discussion, there are 5 frauds that are already committed, because they never made disclosure to you what they're doing, what their intent to doing. They never disclose to you what you're giving up versus what you're getting. So all of this fraud, this bills and bills. And I did 2.5 years of study on this very subject. So I'm pretty familiar with how this works. And then when you go, if you're in a foreclosure issue or about to, you want to send the bank a certified letter demanding that they provide you the true bill. Remember that word, true bill. And what that is a lawful demand that they show you actually in law and the proper honest accounting about what's owed on that. You will never get an answer to that And so you say, well, Ron, then why should we do it? Because you're building a what I call a war chest, that when if it's done correctly, and I know of several cases that have very, very successfully succeeded in addressing the issue of this foreclosure process, simply because, like David said in the program yesterday, that your promissory note pays the entire amount that property that you're wanting to buy. You are the lender. Virtue of your signature, the bank never loans you one red penny, ever. They don't loan you anything. So now let's go to the foreclosure.
So hold on for a second.
Hold
on for a second. So you're saying that if a bank is capitalized with $1 billion in capital, let's say, and you walk in and buy a $500,000 house, it's not like $500,000 comes off their $1 billion worth of capitalization. None of their capital is touched, is what you're saying. At all.
That's correct. That's correct.
Ron, if we could lay that out, and in a manner that everyone can understand, there'd be outrage. There'd be outrage across the nation with what's been done to us. I mean, I don't think people really realize the level, the depth, and the breadth of the fraud. This the all-out theft and fraud that's been perpetrated on us by these scoundrels. You were talking about the foreclosure, Ron. Sorry to cut you off. Go right ahead.
No, really, it's sickening, downright sickening about what they do to the unsuspecting public who just wants to buy a home for them and their family, or whatever the reason is. But all of this fraud enters into this thing. Now I want to jump to the foreclosure side. You have to be 3 months behind before they can activate any kind of an action for a foreclosure. There are two types of foreclosure. There's a notice of sale, of which they just let you know that they're going to quit and they're going to start the foreclosure proceeding. They then will make demand for the entire delinquent amount, plus all of the additional charges that they have no authority to charge you because they didn't lend you any money. Okay? Don't forget, they never lent you a penny. And then the process is that they have to wait 120 days before they can institute the actual foreclosure. Now, in that 120 days, they're supposed to allow you to apply for a loan modification, of which that you can restructure your loan that they never loaned you. It's almost laughable if it wasn't so pathetic that you can restructure that. So they'll send you papers and papers. The papers are never intended to give you a loan modification. The sending of the papers, and you fill them out and send it back, is only for the purpose of chewing up the 120-day wait period. Because at the end of the 120 days, the foreclosure process will go into effect. Now, the other one is a judicial foreclosure. A judicial foreclosure is one where the courts get involved. The bank, the mortgage company, whatever, files an action in a court, of which then you have to do all of this respond. The court loves that because they're a recipient of part of the benefit relative to the value of that property. So the courts are not squeaky clean either. They're conspirators to commit fraud, just like the bank is. Now, let's go to the point that all of this 120-day has been exhausted, okay? In law, the only thing that the bank, if in fact they made a loan, of which they don't, but let's just give it benefit of the doubt for the sake of my point here, that they only are entitled to the money lent and the agreed upon interest. That is called a lien position. But what they do when they foreclose, that they have no authority to do, is that they then, from that point on, they convert that to a title. In land law states that any conveyance of land from party one to another party or whatever has to be accompanied by a title. That's why this land patent stuff is so important and so critical. It's the only title to land that there is in our nation of laws. The only title. A mortgage there and you get a warranty deed is not a title. That is nothing more than what's defined in law as a color of title, which means there's a title somewhere, and that somewhere is the patent. That's why I teach people how to bring the land patent forward. It's a service that I provide so that they can bring that forward, and that's constitutionally based and it's constitutionally protected. But there is no conveyance or any lawful form of which the bank can convert a lien to a title. And then the other fraud is they're not allowed to keep an unjust enrichment, it's called in law, for them to keep all of your equity that you have in your land. They're only entitled to the loan that they made and the interest that's agreed upon to that day of foreclosure.
Ron, I've got several people here, and you're familiar with the Whitefish Credit Union situation that we have here. We've discussed it before. I have several people that have come on my broadcast that I spoke to privately that told me they owed, for example, $300,000 on their home, and the credit union sold it for $800,000, $900,000, $1 million, and they never received any money back from that. That is absolutely 100% against the law, is it not, Ron?
That is absolutely correct. That's defined in law as an unjust enrichment. In other words, money that they get or take, in this particular case, that they do not lawfully entitled to.
Ron, I've held up your book here. We're just running out of time. We're coming to the end. I mean, there's almost so much great stuff to talk about. What we'll do next show is we'll talk about land patents more. In the meantime, though, folks, if you want to find out more about land patents for the upcoming shows that we'll be doing, and we'll have Ron on pretty regularly when we go on the AM and FM. We're going to have Ron on regularly like we did before. We may bring Gene back too, probably will. Gene's a tax expert. We're just kind of getting back on our feet here again, folks. When I say that, I mean getting back into the normal schedule and preparation for the larger broadcast. But in the meantime, you can pick up this book, What You Need to Know About Land Patents, from Ron Gibson, our guest here today, and look this book over. I'll tell you what, folks, you could not probably make a better purchase. How much are these books, Ron? You've got this book and you've got another book. They were like $30 or $40 a piece, right? $50, something like that?
Well, they're $45, which includes the shipping.
Right there, $45. You got that one, What You Need About Land Patents, and then what's your other book, Ron? What's the other book that you wrote, Ron? I don't remember the name of it now. It's escaping me.
The other book that I wrote and that I have available is called You're Not a Slave.
That's right. You're Not a Slave.
You're Not a Slave is based upon the fact where I prove that you're not obligated to pay property tax because you have an allodial title. And on page 72 of that book, I give an illustration. I ask a question and I answer my own question that shows there's no provision in law for the county in and through the state of which they have the authority to assess an ad valorem tax. The government has right to charge certain taxes, but an ad valorem tax is not anywhere in our Constitution, of the federal Constitution, nor in the state Constitution. So here we are.
If you want to find out more about, or actually I should say, if you want to purchase the books and talk to Ron and consult with him, you can either email Ron at dritecrg@hotmail.com. That's dritecrg@hotmail.com. Or you can phone him directly at 541-621-5548. Before we let you go, Ron, what kind of advice can we give the folks out there? We're facing some unusual times. We've talked before about the possibility on this show about the possibility of what they're claiming, that they're going to be going door to door here, supposedly, and trying to give people the shot. What should you do, Ron, if someone shows up at your door to try to inject you outside their jurisdiction, to try to inject you with something that you don't want? What can you tell them legally, in a manner, legally speaking, to make them go away? Do you have any suggestions, Ron?
Yeah, just tell them, no, I'm not doing that. Show me your authority to do it. And one of the things that I learned in law school, my professor was always hammering this in our head. Always challenge jurisdiction. Always challenge jurisdiction. Every single day he would hit us with that. And he said, if you do that, you'll find on 99% of the time that government agencies, entities, or personnel do not have the authority to do what they're asking you or telling you to do. And I have found that to be true. And I don't know if we have time today, but next week or whatever, I'll give you an example of that.
Yes, let's do that. We'll catch that next week. We'll do the land patent titles next week. And we're going to be hitting off again here soon, folks. We're going to be going over the 12 presumptions of the courts. And I tell you, that's just a fantastic study. And if we'll announce that ahead of time. And if you don't catch any other shows that we do with Ron Gibson, we'll probably make that one a 2-hour special, Ron. We'll do the 12 presumptions of the court, and you're just not going to believe, folks, what these scoundrels perceive you as. What the way that they see you it's criminal. I guess it's criminal, is the way they would put it. Ron Gibson, DRITECRG at hotmail.com, DRITECREG at hotmail.com, or 541-621-5548. Ron Gibson, anything you'd like to say in closing before we close out this portion of the broadcast?
Well, folks, it's up to you. We, the people, are either going to save our country or we're going to sit on our duff and let it slide by and lose it. And the tragedy is that throughout history, when you lose it, you never get it back. You never get it back.
That's right. That's a good point, Ron.
If you think things are going to be hunky-dory after the tyranny takes over and the socialism takes over and the common, you're in for a horrible surprise.
Indeed. Ron Gibson, so good to have you on the broadcast. We look forward to having you back on next week. And we'll talk about land patents. We'll get into it a lot more in depth and break it down specifically. 541-621-5548. You can give Ron a call directly, and he'll be happy to help you out as much as he can. Ron Gibson, thanks again for joining us today, my friend. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. Okay, folks, there goes Ron Gibson. We're always delighted to have Ron on the broadcast, and he's a fantastic legal mind. And he's an overall good guy. I like Ron an awful lot and consider him a friend. And support him by going to his, or send him an email and purchasing his books and calling him up and having him help you out. We're going to take a quick commercial break here, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to go over some of the news and information. No, forget that. We're not going to do a commercial break. We're just going to go over some news and information and cover some of the stuff I have to cover here. And I guess I'll just talk about it here rather than really do the commercial. If you're in Kalispell area and you need car repairs, oil change, tire rotation, brakes fixed, that type of thing, go to the Corner Shop there in south of town. 755-7777, 755-7777 is the number. And also, if you don't have storable food yet, folks, what are you waiting for? I think it's beyond time for you to get storable food, water filtration, camp stoves, toiletry kits, all those type of things. And you can do all that at patriotprepared.com. That's patriotprepared.com. And you support this broadcast when you go there and shop at Patriot Prepared. We were hooking up with another Patriot outlet that's got a whole bunch of great products. I'm very excited to get to join their network and start featuring their products here, and all that just helps support this program. But we're going to cover some of the news here real quick. But before we do, let's see here if I can get this on the screen for us. Where is this? I got to find this thing here. There is a rally going on later, I believe, and I want to, there it is. I want to highlight this rally here. So let's see how I can do this. See if I can do this here without screwing things up. Okay, this is yesterday's show. This is yesterday's show. So let's take these off here. If you didn't see yesterday's show, I'll be doing an article on it here today talking about the Daily Interlake and their investigation into Whitefish Credit Union. Okay, so here is an important thing right here. Today, 6 to 8 p.m., South Downtown Kalispell, right there where everything splits and you go around the courthouse there. The protest, the lockdown, and the persecution of seniors. And we're going to encourage School District 5 for mass choice. That's tonight, 6 to 8 p.m. If you are not familiar with the Kalispell area, you head south outside of town there. You see the courthouse. You can't miss it. It's huge. You see the courthouse there. Oh. You see the courthouse there, and you can't miss it. Go get ready. You get ready to go around the courthouse, and you will see the rally there. There's like a little park along the side, like a little park area, and that's where that will be. So check it out tonight between 6 and 8, and bring a friend. Bring a friend, folks. If we don't stand up, they're going to overrun us. They are not. They're not shy about tyranny. They're not shy about perpetrating tyranny upon us. They're not shy about blocking us, censoring us, calling us names, getting us canceled, fired from our jobs. So unless we stand up, unless we have an equal amount of energy behind our movement, they're going to overrun us, and we can't have that happen. So if you want to check out again what's going on here with the radio program, and we're going to have all of the different, any updates, we're going to have the live broadcast really is going on here now. Once we get set up with the radio broadcast is probably going to be on here as well. I probably can link right to the radio station. I know that on the very front page of Montana Daily Gazette, we are going to have the show piped in somewhere along the right-hand side here, probably. On a regular basis. We're going to work on getting that done, getting that finished. But in the meantime, you can go to MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com. You can see here the KHDN AM 1230. That's our new station that we're going to be broadcasting on. This show will be on there soon. In the meantime, though, all these aren't populated, just so you know. The Facebook is. The Twitch, you should be able to find the show on Twitch. Pardon me, in the Rumble, but the other ones here haven't had a chance. We're going to have to get someone to do social media for us to get all those populated at some point. But in the meantime, you can go to MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, and check out what's going on. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit about a couple things here before we move on. Biden begs the Middle East for oil while halting oil production in Alaska. Folks, if you haven't really determined this yet, if you haven't figured it out, we're really under attack, and the overthrow of this country and everything that we hold sacred and that we believe in, and our founding fathers really put their life and their reputation and their fortune on the lines for, is being usurped and trying to be eliminated, overrun, canceled, you name it. We're in a battle right now for the heart of this nation, and one of the things they're doing is they're trying to kill the economy. They're moving, and I got to think one report here. In July, I want to say there was an enormous amount of people coming across the border in July. I think I got that story there in the pipeline there. But this is a planned implosion. This is an infiltration. They've infiltrated the United States, and they're trying to destroy it. You're seeing that happen right before our very eyes. This is a long-term plan that they've been putting in place for a long time. Sadly, our so-called leaders don't have the intestinal fortitude necessary to stand up to these tyrants, and a lot of times they kowtow down to them. And frankly, many people in this country have chosen other distractions, and they've allowed their liberties to be placed in the control and the security and the insecurity, really, of others. And we can see what happens there. So it's no surprise that we see this this headline here as Biden goes to destroy the country. They close the pipelines down here in Montana, and now they're begging the Middle East for oil while halting oil production in Alaska. Now, you may not have liked President Trump's tweets, and I agree with everything that he said, and I said so on my program. I also said many times, Trump is not going to fly in with a cape and a pair of tights on and save everything. Ain't going to happen. Not going to do it. It's up to you and it's up to me. And I've been consistent with that message for probably well over a year now. And finally, we are seeing some action in the general populace. And that is good. But this type of stuff is going to continue. They're going to be begging for other things as well. As they shut down the economy, they're going to be, well, I'm going to get to this story in a minute, but yeah, it's a planned implosion and a planned destruction of the United States, and it's underway right now. You can go to the Federalist and check this out. That's a great publication. Well, shocker. This comes from Summit News. Paul Joseph Watson and his brother Steve run this channel here, I believe. Paul Joseph Watson does great work, great reporter. The head of the World Health Organization Origin Investigation Team admits that Communist China ordered them what to write in a report. The CCP agreed to allow the mention of the lab leak theory on the grounds that they did not recommend any follow-up investigation. It's all rigged, folks. It's rigged. The World Health Organization. Why would an independent nation like America, the United States is the corporate part of it, but the true America, why would we need to take advice from the World Health Organization? We don't have enough smart people in this country? I think we do. Now, we've got I saw a video yesterday about Susan Wachowski. I think she's the head of YouTube. They're using the World Health Organization recommendations on the criteria for who they ban on their channel comes from the World Health Organization. You got the United Nations occupying buildings in Utah and probably other places. When did we ever invite these people in? Who says we want to be a globalist country? We don't want to be. I just saw something here where Whitefish is going to be hiring what's that word they use? I can't believe I forgot the term that they use. Sustainability. They're going to be hiring a sustainability manager. Anytime you hear the term sustainability, right, it's all Agenda 2030. It's all United Nations climate agenda takeover, where you will own nothing and you will be happy about it. It's all part of the Great Reset, apparently. This is not going to happen for these people. This is not going to work for them. They're done. As I've said this, it's taken a lot longer than I suspected, but things always typically do. I commented years ago that they're done for. And you can see the decline of the narrative of the establishment. I stated some time ago, and I still believe it's true. Again, love Donald Trump or hate him. When he started going over the mainstream media directed to the folks and shooting those arrows right over the top of their head and getting directly to the people and circumventing the mainstream media and making them vestigial, in a sense. When he started doing that, I said they're done for. They're done. Because that is the main, that's the main engine behind their fraud, is the mainstream media. They're the ones that, I guarantee you, if everyone turned off the mainstream media, if all the mainstream media outlets went out of business, this nation would heal itself in weeks, months for sure. If all the mainstream media outlets would go out of business and stop reporting, and outlets like mine and other truth outlets were the ones that took over the catbird seat, if you will, and started being the main reporters of the news, the country would heal itself in weeks, if not months. We have to have the will to do that, folks, right? If you see other countries where hundreds of thousands of people are marching in the streets, hundreds of thousands are marching in the streets. because of the tyranny. People won't even get off their couch here for now. They won't even get off their couch to go to the school to protect their children who are being locked up, or I shouldn't say locked up, who are being forced to wear masks. The suicide rate just here in the Flathead Valley alone is it's incredible. It's frightening. And my heart and my prayers go out to any families here that may be listening to this broadcast, because it's probably viewed more widely here in the Flathead Valley than other places. My heart and my prayers go out to you and your family. I can't even imagine the grief that you must be experiencing by your dear child taking their own life. Now, am I 100% saying it's the mask? No. But there's no doubt that there's some sort of a correlation between the increased suicide rate here in the valley and the mask issue. We can't even get people to get off their couch, to go to the school. Every single parent, take a day off work. It doesn't matter. Who cares? I mean, you have to understand, folks. I mean, and I don't want to, and I won't say who it is, but a friend of the family is struggling right now, although they know the answer and they know what's in the shot. They're struggling right now because their work is trying to force them, and they may just give in because they really like working there. That was the excuse. They really like working there. Well, I know that it could be dangerous, and I know that there could be some people that are dying from it, and it could be some paralysis and Bell's palsy and everything like that. Know all that, but I really like working there. Folks, I don't know what to say to that. If you can't get parents up off their duffs to get to the school, to surround the school in a peaceful manner, and demand that they stop putting slave masks on their children, who is increasing the suicide rate, increasing the oral bacteria and the corrosion of teeth, and a variety of different reasons. There have been children that have passed out. Literally, make them wear a mask in a track meet, and they're running around the track and they pass out because they can't breathe because of the damn mask. You know how long this is going to continue to go on? Until first of all, in Flathead County, that's supposed to be such a conservative county, and it is, every single parent that disagrees with the mask should be off work and lining up. Now, in Flathead Valley here, I believe the West Valley School District and Rankin Elementary, if I remember correctly, there may be others. This is just the ones I'm aware of. I haven't been, if you've been following the news, I haven't been printing many articles or anything yet on the news because I've been working behind the scenes to try to get this radio thing all lined up. But I think it's Rankin Elementary and I think it's West Valley School District have decided to make it optional. Okay? Which it should always be optional. Listen, I'm all for freedom. If you want to wear a mask outside on the park on a completely sunny day, more power to you. Listen, you want to get the shot? You can get every vaccine if you want to. You can get them twice. Doesn't matter to me. You can have a vaccine IV hooked up to your arm, walking through town, constantly pumping vaccines into your arm. I don't care. I really don't care. That's your life. That's your life. But when they try to impose their will upon you, when's going to be enough? Like I said, folks, if them masking your children and causing them to causing the increase in suicide, an increase in oral disease, and just overall mental instability, I mean, what is it going to take? Are they going to have to? And I know this is graphic, but are armies of the state going to have to go into your house and sexually assault your wife or your family before that's enough for you to get up and do something? And sorry to be so graphic, but what's it going to take? What's it going to take? Cutting the oxygen off of your children and force them to breathe in poisonous fumes and have mouth disease and suicide. If that's not enough, what's it going to take? Are they going to have to just Start executing your family members on the front lawn before you're going to stand up? I mean, what needs to happen? What more needs to happen, folks? My point is, you look across the nation and there's hundreds of thousands of people marching in the streets. In America, we're tired of this. What do we do? What do we do? I don't know. You tell me. What do you do? What do? You make your voice heard. You don't sit back and complain. Like Rand Paul said, they can't arrest everybody. Can't arrest everybody. There's 500 if there's 500 parents at a school that show up and surround the school or surround the entrance and say, listen, we object. We strongly object. And we're not going to leave until this gets changed. Things will change. Things will change. Now, here's another, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney. That may surprise you. I'm not an attorney, but here is something who is an attorney, someone out there that is an attorney or knows an attorney. They need to investigate this angle because I think it's a brilliant one. And again, from my feeble legal mind, I think it's a brilliant one. If your employer requires you, and I heard this on another one of these BitChute videos, I think it was brilliant. If your employer is going to mandate that you have a vaccine, you make them sign a document that when your shift ends, they have the proper technology in place to extract all of that vaccine and all the harm that it's going to cause you. They need to be able to extract that from you when you go home for the evening, and then when you come back the next morning, they can give you another shot. But again, with the understanding that they have to be able to extract all of the poison and everything they put in you. That's all got to be able to be extracted after your shift's over. Much like they can't tell you that you got to wear coveralls. Let's say part of your work requirement is you got to wear coveralls. They can't mandate that you got to wear coveralls after you leave work, right? They can't say that you got to wear your coveralls 24/7 if you want to work here. Okay, we know that's preposterous to think. Why is it any difference with this jab? Why should you have to get a jab to work between 9 and 5 and then suffer the consequences of that between 5 and 9 the next morning, right? Shouldn't they be able to extract all that just like you take your coveralls off? Shouldn't they be able to remove all that stuff that's required to work there? They need to be able to extract all that out of your body when you leave your job. Again, I'm not an attorney. I don't claim to be one or a lawyer, but there's got to be. I mean, it makes sense to me. But again, I need someone out there that is skilled on that knows what's going on, to flesh that out a little bit, because again, it's not my forte. But they don't have the right to tell you anything to do with your body. They have no authority to do that, right? God did not give them authority over you. God gave you authority over you. He owns your body, but he gave you authority over it. Here we go. Let the depositions begin. New York Supreme Court sides with Project Veritas in suit against New York Times. Now, there's very few people in the news media that I actually admire. I'm not the kind of admire others kind of guy, because I'm just too busy working all the time. But I have to say, I do admire the heck out of James O'Keefe. No doubt about it, man. That guy is a rock star when it comes to investigative journalism, when it comes to exposing crooks. I mean, it's just there's James O'Keefe, and then there's like everybody else. I mean, he really is, in my view, top dog when it comes to that. Doing some fantastic work, unbelievable work, and I have nothing but good things to say about O'Keefe. So what we've got here is the Supreme Court, the New York Supreme Court on Thursday sided with Project Veritas in its lawsuit against the New York Times. Project Veritas will be permitted to depose the New York Times. A motion for stay was denied. Project Veritas sued the New York Times for claiming their Minnesota ballot harvesting video was deceptive. Now, if you saw that Minnesota ballot harvesting video, if I remember correctly, a woman was saying she gets like $5,000 per vote or something. And they were making I'm talking like a lifetime of cash in this last election season, cabbaging votes for these people, illegally harvesting votes, vote harvesting. It's they're so crooked, folks. They're such crooks. People don't even recognize the voluminous amount of crimes that these people have committed. I mean, it's starting to come out. And once the dam breaks, forget about it. Forget about it. Once that thread starts to unravel and we start pulling on that, tugging on that thread, all of this stuff's going to be exposed and you're going to be shocked. I know a lot of it, but I don't know it all, I'm sure. I'm certain of that. Probably more than I even know. And what I know is bad. The college fix. Catholic University of San Diego health plan pays for abortions and sex change surgeries. Read that again. Catholic University of San Diego health plan pays for abortions and sex change surgeries. The university said state and federal law requires it, but won't point to specific examples. So how does that make you feel as a Catholic? And I've got plenty of great Catholic friends and have nothing against Catholics. I don't necessarily agree with their viewpoint on things, but I mean, there's a lot of great Catholics, and I have a lot of Catholics that I love. I can't believe that they're not. Why aren't they up in arms about this? I mean, if your church really is Catholic Church, Catholic University there in San Diego is saying, we're not going to follow what God says. We're going to follow what the state says. Is that really the type of church and religious institution that you want to worship at? I mean, I'm just asking you. If your church says, yeah, we're going to follow the government. Well, how long before the government mandates vaccinations and churches say, well, if you want to come in, you got to get vaccinated? Yeah, well, no matter what. I mean, that's that's cowardly. Do you understand? And we're not going to take the nation back under the leadership of cowards. You understand this, right? This is not a good formula for successfully taking this republic back, is allowing cowards to run things. There's a lot of cowards out there, folks. A lot of posers, a lot of cowards, a lot of frauds, a lot of snakes, a lot of grifters. A lot of grifters. I go to BitChute and I see grifter after grifter after grifter on there. These people, and a guy like Charlie Ward, for crying out loud. Anybody even clicks a Charlie Ward video these days, in my view, has to have their head examined. And you may not like that, but I don't know what to tell you. The guy's nothing but a fraud. A colossal fraud. At any rate, I don't want to get down that road. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a Catholic and you believe in biblical principles as a practicing Catholic, it should disturb you that the Catholic University of San Diego health plan pays for abortions and sex change surgeries. So God decreed, or God made a man and a woman in his divine providence to do that. Yet humans think that they know more, that they're going to change. Oh, God made a mistake. I was supposed to be a woman. Oh, we'll pay for that. We'll pay for God's mistake. No problem. This is a Catholic university. Now, if this was, Harvard or something, you'd probably expect it. But a Catholic university paying for abortions and sex change? I think all you good Catholics out there, and there's a lot of you, I would suggest you start writing letters, making phone calls, and having this stop. So we're going to talk about these things here. Yeah, real quick. So this is from WorldNet Daily. The deadly Lambda variant could be vaccine resistant. Researchers sounding alarm on latest COVID mutation. As the United States struggles with the Delta variant of the novel coronavirus, a new study finds that vaccines are ineffective against the Lambda mutation that is ravaging parts of South America. Researchers in Japan pointed out that Lambda variant, which first surfaced in Peru about a year ago, surged in Chile in the spring despite high vaccination rate, New York Post reported. The study awaits peer review prior to being published. So a couple things on this. First of all, I don't believe anything that these researchers say. Whoever's paying them, that's what the research is going to dictate. The research is going to show whatever their funders want it to show. Science is a fraud these days, folks. It really is. Science has been usurped. And I gotta find that Russell Blaylock video when he was on the Alex Jones show, and I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago. but I used to listen to Alex Jones a long time ago. He was on there and he laid out the whole Rockefeller plan, how they infiltrated the schools, how they infiltrated the medical community, how they infiltrated the newspapers. I mean, when I tell you that the things that are happening today have been in play for 80, 90, and in some cases are close to 100 years in some of these things, this is not an exaggeration. This is not a hyperbole, right? Just do your study, do your research, and do your history of just the Rockefeller family alone, and see what they've done and how they've been able to influence everything. Their people are everywhere. They've got their man or woman in about every institution you can think of, and they're corrupting it. And you see now, you wonder why all these corporations are all so woke and all jumping on the bandwagon, and jumping on the cancer culture and all that stuff. Yeah, because they're all linked in together, folks. They've been planning this for a long time. There's no mistake. There's no accident here. This isn't like, well, they stumbled across something. These people are just incompetent. No. Nope. They've been planning it for a long time. This is what needs to happen right here. Pennsylvania prison guard union threatens legal action against Democratic Governor Tom Wolf over mandated vaccines. The Pennsylvania prison guard union threatened legal action against Democrat Governor Tom Wolf this week in his efforts to force the members to get COVID vaccines to work. So, standing up against these tyrants is what works. Did you see this guy in Canada was stood up there and had them prove the evidence that it existed? He subpoenaed him. He subpoenaed him in court and put him under oath to provide the evidence that proved that there was a novel coronavirus strain, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it, right? I've heard of other groups and companies that have had people walk out and the company change the policy. Okay? They can't operate without you. Do you understand? Again, like Ron Gibson just said on the show, when it comes to things in terms of law, they only have authority over you if you allow them to, if you volunteer to. If you got your people at work and got together and said, we're not working here anymore if you don't change this policy, they would change the policy. Understand, there's a work shortage as it is right now, right? It's a workers' market, meaning the leverage has shifted. The balance of power has temporarily shifted over to the employee. Okay? The employer would always like to maintain that power, but they need to have a workforce to be able to do that. They don't. They don't. Right? If they had 100 workers sitting on the bench in the applications waiting to work there, they wouldn't really give a rat's patootie what you wanted to do. But that's not the case. They don't make money unless people come in and spend it at their store. And people aren't going to come in and check themselves out or stock the shelves themselves, right? Or make pizzas in the delis themselves. They're not going to do that. They have to have workers to do that. If you just resist and say we're not going to do it, the whole machine grinds to a halt. You don't have to bring in baseball bats and tire irons, pool cues. You don't have to have firearms, a hand axe, none of that stuff. You don't have to use any of those things. No violence needed at all. None. No violence needed at all. Not even a little. All you need to do is get together with your like-minded coworkers and stand up and say, we're not going to work here anymore. If you can get 75 or 80% of them, you control things, see? And it's the same thing. It's a microcosm of our role when it comes to government. Right? We are the power. The people are the power. We are the number one, official in the county. It's the folks. It's the folks. And it can be that way at your work, too, if you just come together and say we're not going to put up with it. Now, again, I just stated here earlier, and I don't know, again, I have an attorney look into this, but the concept of you're going to force me to put a vaccine in my arm to work from 9 to 5, you better be able to take it out at 5:01. You better be able to remove every last trace of it, and any changes or any alterations or any damage it's done to my body and my cells, you better be able to extract that at 501 and repair all that damage before I leave the place, or I'm not doing it. They don't have the authority. Do you understand? They don't have the authority. You would be so shocked. You'd be amazed to know how far along the path these criminals have gotten without even having the jurisdiction to do so. They assert privilege over you that they don't even have. And here's the thing. People don't know that they don't have those privileges, and they assume that they do because people in suits tell them so, and people that sit behind desks with, diplomas on the wall behind them tell them so. And these people that live in, that work in official buildings tell them so, and have official titles, they tell them so. They think that they have control over them, and they don't. No one. I don't care what Supreme Court justice rules on it. I don't care what legislator rules on it. I don't care the county commissioner, the mayor, the police chief, the sheriff. Makes no difference. You are above all of them. You are above all of them as the man on the land. Right? A person. You're above them all. Your rights trump all of their rights. No one of them can ever implement a mandatory anything on you to do anything against your will. Can't do it. Can't do it. They can claim they can do it. We've got Supreme Court rulings that say we can do it. But remember, Supreme Court's only other men and women. Okay? They're not gods. They're not gods. God didn't bestow the authority on them to usurp your rights. Unless there's a meaning I don't know about, unless there's a section of the Bible that's missing, the part about the Supreme Court, partnership. Maybe I missed that one. Maybe that chapter is a lost chapter. I don't know. But I'm suggesting it doesn't exist. Who are these people? They don't have the right to do what they're doing. Do you understand that? As I've said before, it's not a matter of you're going to take the jab or not take the jab. Do they even have the right or the jurisdiction to proclaim you have to? No, they don't. It's a fraud. It's all a fraud. All a fraud. And of course, this is just a disaster in the making. Biden's border sees 212,000 try to cross in July alone. I didn't even know there were that many. I thought it was 120. Almost, 80% more than I thought. I'm barely speechless. I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I mean, they're locking down people in LA County. You can't go to the theater. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to a gym unless you've been vaccinated. Yet 212,000 people trying to cross the border in July alone, and the majority of them not vaccinated. But they bring them right in and drop them off in all kinds of cities across the country. Unvaccinated. Now, it's my belief, and it's been my historical, it's been basically my historical observation, that if you have a healthy immune system, and you take care of your immune system, and you fortify it and strengthen it and do things that help boost your immune system, you're not going to get sick very often at all. That is the greatest gift that God has ever given us, besides Jesus Christ as our Savior, is our immune system. No doubt about it. Ron's calling me here. He must not know that I'm on the air. The immune system is the greatest gift that we've been given. Personally here, for as I said, save Jesus Christ. And if you strengthen it, if you nurture it, if you enhance it, if you do things that boost it, you're not going to get sick very often at all. You're just not going to. Your body, we've got the natural ability to fight off a lot of these things. And some of these things are just everyday garden variety viruses that we've been dealing with for a long, long time. You ever heard the old thing, sell the sizzle? And it's a salesman's term. They sell the sizzle. Meaning the actual steak may not taste so good, but man, listen to that sizzle. Sure does sound like it's going to taste good, doesn't it? That's selling the sizzle. That's what they do. Right? Now, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to mark it down, is I'm going to research, and I may have even done a video on it already or two. I have to look at my catalog of videos. But I'm going to next week discuss the trauma-based mind control. I'm going to make it a point this weekend, if I can find the time, to do some cursory research and just re-familiarize myself with the trauma-based mind control program. Break it down to you the best I can, and you will understand this is what we are under. This is what they are trying to do here, is trauma-based mind control. Now, we're familiar with the Project Monarch, and I think of it, Dr. Ewan Cameron. It's just escaping me now. It'll be a big part of the program that we're talking about here. But they have, this is not anything new. The ability to control entire populations has been researched now for 80 or 100 years. Edward Bernays, in his book Propaganda, laid it all out. Pretty much laid it out, and as I've said before, it goes against your probably common wisdom. It goes against what you would think would be right, but it is much easier to control 100,000 people than it is to control 20. I know it doesn't sound proper, but that's just the way that it is. And you see how that's happening here with this mask thing and all this stuff. This is all trauma-based mind control. This is selling fear. Think about that. Let's break it down for a minute. Trauma-based mind control. Trauma-based. Trauma. You know what trauma is, right? You fall off the tree, you break your arm, your arm's suffering some trauma. It's broken. Trauma-based. They're trying to use that same technology on your mind. It's always been, the battle's always been here. Always. And this 8-inch gap here, this 10-inch gap, whatever it is here between your two temples, that's where the battle is. That spot, that space right there, that space. Forget about all the battlefields in the world, all the planes that you can see, all the ships and all the seas and all of that. Forget about all that. The battle is going on here, right in here. That's where it is. If you succumb to that, then I believe that you're not long for this world, because they're going for the broke now. If you follow the mandates of the establishment this time around, it could kill you. It could kill you. And that's what they've been planning for all along. This time, when they would nakedly, openly, there's people, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day. There's people that stand in line at these clinics to get vaccinated, and they wheel people out on gurneys that have passed out and gotten ill after the shot. They wheel them out right in front of all the other people that are waiting in line to get inside, and no one decides to leave. That whole that voice that we have, that internal wisdom that God's given us has been somehow turned off. It's like for some people, they don't have it anymore. It's gone. It's gone. I don't even know what else to say. When you're standing in line to get a shot, and they're wheeling people out on a gurney, not just one, multiple people out on gurneys after the shot, after they got their shot, and you still stand in that same line to walk right in to get your shot, I think that's on you, folks. I think that's on you. I really do. I'm not wishing for anybody to be harmed. I don't want anybody to have long-term effects. God forbid. God forbid. And as a matter of fact, I hope I'm really hope and pray that a lot of these things, a lot of people were given saline. I read an article where there were a group of nurses that worked in the Army or worked in the armed forces that they gave a bunch of saline shots instead of the Moderna vaccine. I don't know. Who knows? I hope that's true. I hope that's true. I really do. I don't want to see harm befall people. I really don't. Folks, this is the battle for everything we're in right now. And you can support us in this battle. If you can't get out there and do it yourself, if you work, if you have children, if you just don't have time to get out there and fight the battle yourself, support those that do. You can do that by going to MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaDailyGazette.com, or going to the flagship northwestlibertynews.com. If you want to support me personally, you can go there and click on the Support Independent News button there. And of course, you can always support the show by going to PatriotPrepared.com and ordering all your storable food, getting all your storable food needs taken care of. We do appreciate our guest Ron Gibson coming into the show today, and we'll have Ron back next Friday. We're going to be, as I said, we're always working here to get, we've got to do bumpers, we've got to do new show openings, waiting on the computer equipment to get here. We're going to have a whole new green screen thing. We're going to get some lights. Going to be pretty fancy here, we're hoping. That's the goal anyway. And as we continue to work towards that, we appreciate your patience, and things are just not happening in the speed that we had liked. The computer system's pretty beefy. It's between $4,000 and $5,000, this computer system. So it's a pretty beefy piece of machinery. So that's what the delay is, I think, getting that thing built. But it'll be here soon. We do appreciate you looking in. Again, you want to support our sponsors and support this network and pray for us. MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com. Until next time, this is Jim White for Montana Gazette Radio saying bye now.